What is up, my friends? Hello. I am so freaking excited to be here. Oh my goodness. I can't even tell you how freaking pumped I am that I finally decided to sit down and press record on this episode because it feels like it has been such a long time in the making. And today was the day. Today is the freaking day. Even though I'm looking at my monitor and I know June is awake, I was like, I just have to get started because I've been procrastinating on this. And it just was starting to feel like it was too much. And it's interesting because I was actually listening to a podcast episode yesterday, Amber Lillystrom, and she was talking about how, there is so much magic within each and every one of us. And if we're sitting back and we're afraid to put that magic out into the world, whether it is an Instagram post, a podcast episode, a business idea, an event idea, just having dinner with some girlfriends, if we just keep sitting on that idea and we don't put it out into the world because we're waiting for the timing to be perfect or for our words to be perfect or for insert any other number of circumstances here, if we're waiting for that to feel perfect or for it to feel like super aligned or exciting or whatever the case may be that it is that's holding you back, just put yourself in this story somewhere, because I'm certain that there's probably something like that in your life right now that you can relate to this story. Like, what good is that doing? Not just for us, but the people in our lives or in our communities who we know that we're going to connect with or serve or help or benefit by taking action on whatever that thing is. And so yesterday I'm like, man, I feel like I listened to this podcast on the perfect day because I need to put a podcast out into the world. I need to make moves in my business. I even just need to start talking on my Instagram stories more, because I know that I do have a lot of really cool things to share, really valuable things. And even though I have been working in the online space since 2018, that's when I first started my first network marketing business. That's a long ass time. And I've been doing it since then. And I still get tripped up because with different seasons of life come different, there's that old quote, like new level, new devil. And sometimes like I still just get caught up in things. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to end that literally today. And so that's why we're here, finally getting this out into the world. So let's get into it. About a month ago-ish, I asked on my Instagram stories what people were most interested in hearing about. And an update on / some insight from June's delayed development knocked it out of the park. This is something that I'm always super excited and love to talk about, because as we've progressed along this path, and when I say we, I mean June, myself, and my husband, because we're the main ones who are involved in her life, as we've progressed along this path of knowing that she's not hitting certain milestones in like a quote unquote typical way, so much comfort has come from having conversations with other moms or care providers who share similar stories or insights from having been through similar situations. So if I can help other moms feel less alone or feel more comforted on the path that they're on, like if they're on in a similar path, if they're on a similar situation, if they're seeing delays with their child's development, maybe not even in the exact same ways that June is, and I can just bring some peace and comfort and insight or knowledge or value to their lives, like truly that would mean the world to me. So that's what I'm hoping to do. That's the intention of this podcast episode. So I also want to start with this. June is a straight up angel. She's a ray of sunshine. She is love and joy and like a human angel in human form. She's a very happy baby. She's very healthy. She's bright. She's well-mannered, strong. She's social. She loves to play with other kiddos. She's pretty easygoing for the most part. For the first, we still get asked this, but as she has become more of a toddler, it's a little bit less, but we're always asked, like, is she always this happy? Is she always this smiley? Is she always this well-mannered? And the answer is usually yes. And in so many ways, she's just like any other 17-month-old baby. You know what? She's actually 17 months old today, which is very exciting. And you know what? She's not really a baby anymore. She's a toddler, but she'll always be my baby, so I'm always going to call her that. But when it comes to certain milestones, she's just a little bit behind. In others, she's a little bit ahead. So that when it comes to that, June is not yet crawling, walking, or talking. Like she has no interest whatsoever in pulling herself up. Like her crib is still at the high height because she doesn't even want to like crawl, like pull herself up and peek out over her crib. She doesn't want to cruise along couches when she's standing up on them. She will stand, like we have a play table in her playroom where she plays with her and like so many different toys, and she'll stand there for very long lengths of time. She's happy to do it, but she has no interest in like cruising along them. Or she can now, if she sits on my lap, if I'm sitting cross-legged, she will put her hands on the table and pull herself up, which is great progress that we've been seeing. But she also hates tummy time. So if she's on her tummy and you have her, so she's like propped up on her elbows, or she's like holding herself up with her arms straight out and she's in like a crawling position, she will not try and crawl. She won't even last that long in that position because she just hates it. As soon as she learned how to roll over, she was out when it came to tummy time. She was like, F this, I don't like it. And so I'm not going to do it. And so that is something that we've been working on. But just for like a little bit of context, that's what I mean when I say that she has developmental delays. It's with her talking, crawling, and walking. She does love to move in certain ways. Like she wiggles around, she waves, she claps, she rolls over, she blows kisses. But crawling and walking, they're just not for her yet. So before I illustrate her current abilities anymore and give you like set the stage, I also just wanted to give you a little bit more of a timeline, a bit of a rundown to paint the picture and give some context, especially if you're a mom who is looking for some insight, if you're in a similar situation when it comes to your kiddo's development. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown, and I'm going to go through, I mean, there's a decent amount. I wanted to give some good detail, again, especially for the other moms out there who are curious to know if, let me see, how can I say this? If you're curious about exactly what we've been doing, because maybe you're looking for some guidance or some inspiration or some ideas for how to navigate a similar situation in your life. So I am going to give like a decently detailed rundown. So if at any point this gets to be like, oh my gosh, okay, I don't really need to know these details, you can just hit forward 10, forward 15 and get to the point where I share all of the insights that I've gleaned from this situation and how it has helped me as a mom, as a human being. So that's going to be at the end. But first, I just want to go through this timeline. So I first noticed around 4 months old that June wasn't and had no interest in propping herself up on her elbows while doing tummy time. I also have a friend whose baby is about a month younger than June, and I started to see her propping herself up and loving it and like reaching out and playing with toys when she was on tummy time and like having a time. And I said to my doctor, like, is it normal that June has no interest in doing this, that she's not doing this already? You know, like when, around what time should this be comfortable for her? And he looked at her chart and she was like, her head is in the 99th percentile and her body is in the 47th percentile. So it's probably very uncomfortable for her to be in that position. And it feels like she has a quote unquote bowling ball on her head that she's trying to prop up. So she's just uncomfortable. Don't worry about it. I kept inquiring about this, about how her head is bigger than her body at every checkup and asking what the reason for the lack of movement and development was. My doctor kept saying that, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Some kids take longer and that she may just walk before she crawls. And yeah, it probably has to do with the size of her head. So that went on for many months. And around her first birthday, around her first birthday, but it was at her 12-month checkup that her doctor said, okay, I want to refer her to physiotherapy and speech pathology. And he said not to be super worried about speech pathology at the time, but it takes a long time for kids to get in once the referral has been made. So we might as well make it, because by the time she gets around to seeing someone, it might be the point where we should like support her in that way. So we started physio mid-September. So she's about 13 months old at this point. We started to also see a chiropractor at the end of October because one of my girlfriends suggested it. Her kids had seen a lot of benefits from seeing a chiropractor. We started at the beginning of November going to aqua physio. It's called Little Splashers, which is so stinking cute. At the end of November, June began moving. So if I like hold her up at her trunk, she started moving her legs in a walking motion, which was a huge milestone. And I didn't cry because I had some friends over at the time and I was like, okay, keep it together. But that was really huge. So she had her first occupational therapy appointment in mid-December, and she was scheduled at that time to begin seeing a speech pathologist in January. So it's January now, January 22nd. Since she started seeing her occupational therapist, she has seen her twice. The speech pathologist has just sat in on the appointments both times, kind of just asks questions about things to get a good baseline for where June's at, gives a couple suggestions for what I can be doing to help her. Nothing super alarming from the speech pathologist. And then also our family doctor referred June, I think it was at her 14-month checkup, referred June to a pediatrician because he was like, June is so bright. It seems like you're doing all the right things. She's hitting all the other milestones. She's a super healthy baby. But he was like, I just don't want to miss anything. So I would really like for her to see a pediatrician. At that time, the first available appointment was in November. So luckily, my chiropractor was able to refer us to a different pediatrician who we got in with 2 weeks later. So that appointment happened. I know I'm kind of backtracking on my timeline right now, but rewind just a sec to about 1 month ago. I believe it was a few days before we went on Christmas vacation. And she didn't really ask many questions. We just filled out a questionnaire. Didn't really examine June much, just asked to see what she was like during tummy time. And June hated it. I think she also was beginning to experience some teething pain at that time. So she was just crying, stranger danger, didn't want to do tummy time. And the pediatrician was like, okay, I want her to see a neurologist. So naturally, and I just want to slide this in here for any other moms out there, I got into my car and started crying immediately because I've never been worried that anything is wrong with June because she is so smart. I'm just like, you know what? My mama instinct tells me that it all has to do with her head size, which I'm going to talk more about later in this episode. I was never ever super worried about her because we're doing all the right things. She's such a healthy girl. But in that moment, I was like, holy shit. This just felt so much more real because she has to go see a neurologist. What? So anyways, the pediatrician was like, double down, triple down, quadruple down on the amount of tummy time that you're doing because we need to build up that core strength. And it worked because since then she's begun to pull herself up to standing at a table from sitting on my lap, which I already mentioned, but that's an advancement within the last 3 weeks, I want to say, which is amazing also. So we went back to see the pediatrician on the 2nd of January. She referred her to a pediatric neurologist. Still haven't heard anything back there, but still waiting. Okay, so now that we're fully up to date, or at least I think we are. So much has gone on. So if this is something that you are interested in, always feel free to send me a DM. Slide into my DMs. I'm sure that my Instagram is how you probably found this podcast. So you know my handle. Send me a message. Love talking about this stuff. I thought it would be helpful to share also some insights now. Now that I've set the stage, you know exactly where June is at. Just wanted to set the stage with that. And then I also just wanted to share some lessons I've learned because I just feel as though this is happening for a reason. And it can be kind of, I don't want to say scary, but sometimes I'm just like, I want her to be able to play with other kids and run around. And I'm so excited to hear her little voice. And I really wish that I wasn't missing out on that right now, selfishly. But I truly do believe that it's one of the most beautiful lessons life has given me. And so I just want to share some things that have come to me through being on this adventure. So the first one, we as moms know our babies best, especially when we're the main care providers. And what I mean by that is I'm I am the main care provider for June because I spend every day with her. My husband went back to work full time 2 weeks after she was born. So I'm her main care provider. I know her best. As moms, like, we grow our babies, we birth them, we witness their daily evolution, their movements, their emotions, their quirks, their preferences, their struggles. We get to see all of that firsthand. We're there for all of the doctor's appointments, asking any of the questions that we feel are pertinent, and advocating for what we think is aligned for them. So, for these reasons, I have come to not just think, but know it's so important to trust our mama gut, especially when it comes to situations like this. Because, yes, they are professionals. Doctors, OT, physio, chiropractors, all of those people are professionals. That being said, even though they're well educated and they know what's going on because they see babies all the time, they only see our unique babies for a fraction of their lives. And that's why, as moms, we have to advocate for our kids and trust that what we think and know, there's a lot of weight to that. Obviously, we might have to check ourselves sometimes, maybe have a conversation with our husband, our mom, whoever you trust in your life to give you some good insight about. Sometimes it's my therapist. But that being said, we really have to advocate because we know our babies best. This is why, and I kind of mentioned this a couple minutes ago, through all of this, I still believe down to my core that the main reason for her resistance towards moving tracks back to her head being so much bigger than her body from a very young age. She hated tummy time. And it's interesting because when she was super, super little, infant, I have a picture of her propping herself up when she's on my chest, tummy on my chest, in the hospital when she was days old. And her head was a lot smaller then. But after that, I just think that she hated tummy time. And as soon as she learned how to roll over, she didn't want to be on her tummy. And so that's when her core muscles stopped being strengthened. And there's so much research about this that shows that neurons that fire together wire together. And so since her brain isn't in the routine of telling her body to move in the ways that help strengthen her core isn't as strong as a lot of other kiddos her age. And that is crucial for not just crawling, but also walking, for pulling herself up, for moving herself around. You have to have that core muscle. And that's the main thing that the pediatrician and the physiotherapist say to me, is that her core strength is just so weak. And so that's what we're working on time and time again, so many times throughout the day. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what my gut tells me. On the same note of trusting our mama gut, I know that the only way to help June catch up and strengthen her skills and her muscles and her neurons, that she needs to begin crawling and walking and everything in between. I don't think she's yet ready for full-time daycare. That's just not, there's not enough time for one care provider to help her with what she needs. Because even though sometimes when she's even standing up, propped up on something, the other night, I was making dinner in our kitchen, and I can see through to our living room, and June was standing up playing with her animals on some play blocks, and Nick moved his hands away for 2 seconds to blow his nose, and I watched her just completely fall over. She doesn't even know how to put her hands out yet to break her fall or to help herself. And while it's not the end of the world, because kids fall down all the time, that's how they have to be able to learn how to walk, I just started to worry that if we put her in daycare, she's either A, she's going to fall over and she's going to hurt herself, or B, she's going to be sitting all day long and she's not going to get that support and reinforcement that she needs to help build up that core strength, to help build up her overall strength that she needs to crawl and walk and do all the things. So my mom gut is telling me full-time daycare, it's just not for her right now. So that's the first thing. Trust your mama gut. Second, all babies develop on their own timeline, and short of pouring love and support into them as best as we can't push them to do anything that they're not ready to. this, and it's so interesting because when I talk to other people about where June's at with her development, so many other moms are like, yep, it's the same when it comes to potty training. Like you just hear such a wide spectrum of when kiddos finally feel like they're ready to start potty training, and not even like they're ready to, but even put any effort into it. So this has been so comforting. And this is, like I said at the beginning, one of the main reasons I wanted to share this podcast episode, because the more conversations I have with people about specifically June's development with walking, crawling, and talking, the more I see it to be true that kids take their time and they do it when they're ready. So the one example of this, and my mother-in-law told me about this a while ago, Nick's dad has a friend that he worked with in the 80s, still lives in Sarnia. We still go have dinner with them whenever Nick's dad and stepmom are in town. And this man who's freaking brilliant, like he's so smart. He's in his 60s now, but when he was little, he didn't walk until he was 2 years old. And in his mind, he's like, I was just sitting there watching what kids were doing. And I don't know if he even remembers this or if this is just like his take on it, but like just sitting around watching all the other kids do all the things and like really taking things in until he was ready. And now he's like smart as hell, very active. And I'm like, okay, if Les didn't start walking until he was 2, that gives me some comfort. My chiropractor told me that her daughter didn't speak when she started pre-kindergarten. So I know that can be varying ages, but it could be 3 years old. It could be 4 years old. And her kid now, who I believe is 8, she's like, she doesn't stop talking now. Like I wish I relished in that time a little bit more when there was a little more silence in my life. But now, yep, super smart kid, didn't start speaking till she went to pre-kindergarten. My boss, when I was telling her that I wasn't quite ready to come back to work in February, just because I want to be there to support June and help her and really be there for her if she can't be in daycare, she started telling me about the fact that she has she has a niece and she has a nephew, both of them very, very like eerily similar situations when they were little. They are now teenagers. And she was like, we kind of have to humble them sometimes because they're so brilliant, like so freaking smart. And we have to humble them sometimes. And so it's like, okay, her nephew also is like the star of his basketball team. He's in high school and like super mobile now. But she was like, if you looked at these kids when they were between 3 and 5 years old, you would almost be a little bit worried about what their outlook is as like in life, as kids, as teenagers, as adults, because they were just so much further behind the like quote unquote typical medical milestones. And this list goes on and on and on. I have even met kids at playgroup who I met one the other day. He's 2.5 years old, still not talking. Another one, the dad was like, I swear he's a Leo baby. I didn't believe in horoscopes until this third kiddo. He will not talk. And I think he just likes to do everything on his own time. He has to do it his way. And I think this kiddo is 3. So yeah, there are examples all over the place now. And hearing them and seeing examples like this, just, who had an atypical start when it came to life, or they're like still like that, they just bring me so much joy and a real sense of calm, because it just helps me know that June isn't alone and she's not like doomed. She's a smart, healthy girl, and her future looks actually very positive because there are so many other examples, but also for a parent. So I was talking to the woman who runs the play group that we go to. And when I was talking about how I thought June got passed up for a few registered daycares because of her lack of mobility and speech, and, probably requiring more work for the care providers, I think that's why a few of them passed us up. Chantel was like, you are so not alone. That happens all the time. And yes, you do have to deal with a little bit more when your kiddos are experiencing these delays. But again, you are so not alone. It happens all the time. And just keep talking to people about it if you're comfortable, because you will start to see more and more examples. You'll hear more insight, more ideas, more ways that you can help your kiddo. You'll just like build this little community around it, which I have. And it's so freaking helpful. And again, just brings me so much joy and peace and calm. Okay, number 3 of what I really have learned and gleaned from this experience. I'm a believer in God, divine timing, and the power of the universe. I'm also someone for so much of my life has always been like fast forwarding to the future. I can't just like sit and enjoy what's going on. I just want to move more quickly to whatever is next. It's like before something is even done, I'm like, what are we doing next? What's coming up after this? What are we planning for after this vacation is over? Like before my vacation would even be over, I would be like, okay, what are we going to do when we get home? And it would be so difficult for me to just like sit and be present. And I think I missed out on a lot of life because of this. This caused me to rarely be living in the moment. And so I think that one purpose of June's timing around these areas of her development is to help me continue unlearning that habit of racing through life and instead slow down, soak in every moment, and really be there with her and for her as she grows up. Because how many times do you hear this? Your kids are only going to be so little for so long. It's going to race by. Before you know it, they're going to be in kindergarten. Before you know it, they're going to be in high school. Like we hear that all the time. And I have really internalized that since she was born, because I don't want to look back and think like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember her first few years because I was so tired, or I wasn't present, or I was wishing the time away because it was tough, because that's really easy to do. But I've always, and I'm just going off on a little tangent here because I think it's important, you can't wish away the tough times without wishing away the good times, because every single day is going to include both. Especially when they get to this stage, I'm learning more and more of being a toddler and they're teething. And it's like 1 minute, everything is rainbows and unicorns and butterflies. And the next, the world is ending. She's throwing her food all over the place. She's whipping my hand away because probably she's teething, she's uncomfortable, something's going on, or she's just developing and her brain is moving so quickly that she doesn't know how to verbalize what she feels. So she cries and she gets frustrated and she throws a temper tantrum. But you can't wish that time away without also wishing away the good stuff. Like when we get older, we're going to look back on certain times in our lives and be like, those were the good old days. Like that was so easy. And I truly believe that even though things are challenging sometimes for June, and yes, we're putting in so much work to help her with her development, like so many appointments, so many check-ins, like all the things, so many, like doing so much research to figure out what we can do. I truly do believe that this is the easiest our lives are ever going to get, because we're just going to keep living. We're going to keep doing renovations to our house. We're going to have more kids. Our parents are going to age. Our, like our friends, like who knows what is going to happen in the world. But I truly believe like this is the easiest part of our lives, and it's only going to continue to get more challenging or more hard or more full, like all the good stuff too. But like just sitting in and like really sinking into enjoying her is such a blessing. She has this like soft, sweet, one of a kind, wondrous nature. And I just love that I get to experience it and that she is kind of taking her time, because it makes it easier for us to soak into those small moments. So, kind of on that same note, number 4 of things I've learned or gleaned or skills that I'm developing on top of being patient and being comfortable sitting in the discomfort, or just sitting in the mundane, quote unquote mundane, even though it isn't mundane, like it's life. It's watching my beautiful baby figure out how to put a peg into a hole. This is giving me more time with her. As I mentioned, we realized a few weeks ago that she's not ready for full-time daycare, even though I was so excited to get her into full-time daycare so I could scale my business and start producing more income, all of these things. We realized that she's just not ready. She needs a lot more one-on-one time throughout her day for the exercises required, even something like standing, as I mentioned. She just needs more help. It's not realistic to think a daycare provider can do that for her. And so she's only going 2 days a week, every other week, and for the drop-in days, which is amazing. So the woman who we are taking her to, she's been letting us know, hey, there's a kiddo who's not coming today. This day has become available. Would you like to come? So we've done that twice and it's been amazing. And I think this is the perfect way for her to ease into things, for her to get that socialization in, because her physiotherapist said one day, kids are oftentimes the best therapy because they learn from each other. The sounds they make, just how their faces look when they're making those sounds, how they move, like what their tactics are to like pull themselves up or move toys around or whatever the case may be. So we do see massive value in her being in daycare. But at this time, it's just so freaking hard to find a daycare provider that's willing to welcome a toddler like her. We're so blessed that we found a woman who did. And one of the main reasons is because her kids also struggled with similar situations when they were super little. So obsessed with her. She's so sweet. The other thing is that it's really freaking hard to find a daycare provider that Nick and I feel comfortable taking June to. I did some interviews at a couple daycares and I was like, how is this even legal? How is this even a registered daycare? There's gross wet cat food dishes and it smells, and I'm not even going to go into it. But there were some weird things that I saw out there when we were interviewing at daycares. And so June's only going, like I mentioned, we have her in this amazing place. It's going to be wonderful for her. But what this ultimately means is that I have the gift and blessing of staying home with her longer. I am working just in the hours that she's napping, which is not a lot. It's like very, very part-time, but it like feeds my soul. It helps me do work that I love to do and add value to the world. Although it admittedly has opened up a whole new world of challenges for me in a sense, because I do have a craving and a desire to build and scale my business. I thought it's so wild. And you know what? This would actually be the fifth thing that this really has helped me learn. But I'm going to stick with number 4 and I'm going to ride this one out. This has been a bit of a challenge for me because I thought that I would be scaling a business during June's nap time. And I thought I would be so much further along. But my gosh, like she is a full-time job. When she's awake, I can hardly have my phone out because she wants to grab like whatever I have, she wants to hold. If I have my drink up, she wants my straw. If I give her a straw, she wants to trade straws. If I give her 2 straws to hold, she wants to put her straws in my cup. Like she's a full-time job and I'm obsessed with it. However, I thought my business and my work would be in a different place by now, but I'm starting to realize that yes, I wanted to build a business that I would scale and earn income from and contribute to our family and contribute to society. But now what I'm learning is that this gift of me being able to stay home and be present with my toddler and help her develop and help her learn and help her grow, that is the purpose. Instead of scaling and building a business, I'm helping to build up and in a like, I don't want to say scale my daughter, but in the way that you know how you like scaling a business, you're growing it, you're expanding it, you're taking it to a next level, you're making it more valuable. That's what I'm doing with my daughter. I don't think I would use the word scale necessarily, but do you know what I mean? The things I wanted to do in business, I'm now doing with my daughter. And as a result, I'm putting massive value out into the world because she's going to grow up knowing how freaking loved she is. This is also a little bit of a side note. I'm reading the book Scattered Minds by Gabor Mate right now. And the chapters I'm in are talking about how attachment and attunement are the most valuable things we can do for our children when they are infants and toddlers. And then also kids as well. But for the purpose of June right now, her growing up in this environment is adding massive value to the world because when she grows up, that's going to carry through to the way she shows up in the world, to the way that she works, the way that she contributes, the way that she helps others, the way that she's a leader, the way that she thinks, her confidence, her security. And so that's been like a massive shift for me, but being able to see it as a blessing and a gift, God, I'm just so freaking grateful for it, especially because we have a lot going on. Like I mentioned, June has physio. She has OT. We're actually starting a new group tomorrow called Early Adventurers or Early Explorers, which is OT, PT, speech pathology, all wrapped into one. We see a pediatrician. She goes to the chiropractor. And we also go to playgroup, which shout out to Ontario. If you are an Ontario mom, early on centers are the bee's knees. I am obsessed with these places. They just Google it. For the sake of how much time we have left on this episode, Google early on centers. If you are in Ontario, especially if you are listening to this and you are in Sarnia, the Lochiel Kiwanis early on center. Oh, I'm obsessed. I moved to a neighborhood 10 minutes away. I have an early on center 2 minutes from me. I still drive the 10 minutes to the other center because I'm just obsessed with it. The women are amazing. The moms are amazing. It's just like this little community. So June and I spend a lot of time doing that because since she's not going to be in daycare, I'm like, I still want her to be around kiddos. So this is where she goes. She gets in socialization. I get the information and the knowledge and the learning and the understanding from the women who facilitate it. In fact, one of the women today told me that if we're trying to help our kids with their speech, it's good to help them in the tub. If you can take a tub, if you're watching this on video, you take them to the tub with a straw and help them blow bubbles. And if you have a straw around you or later, put the straw around your mouth and feel the muscles in your cheeks, like helping your kiddos build their like cheek muscles up by blowing bubbles. Apparently that's super helpful. Also on that note, I want to just a little side note. One of the things that the physiotherapist thinks is the reason for June's slower development is her tone. This was a whole new world for me. I didn't really know what tone was until PT started, and she has lower tone, which might just make it harder for her to move her throat and her mouth in certain ways to get out certain sounds. So her tone is different in all parts of her body, and she's trying to get them to work cohesively, and that's a struggle for her. So fifth is something that I kind of circled back, or I was going to say, something that I've learned through this whole adventure, and I'm going to have to do this one super quickly because June is rolling around and she's ready to come down and party, is that I thought when I had a baby and I was on mat leave and I had all the what I thought I was going to have extra time, I was like, I'm going to build a business. It's going to be all about moms and helping moms who want to build businesses and stay home with their babies. Like I thought I had it all figured out. Psych, that did not happen. It is going to happen in its own timing. And I've had to just like surrender to that idea because I do want to continue living the life that I'm living currently, where my schedule runs around my children. I mean, in the future, it'll be children. Right now, it's my child, but like my family unit. I want my schedule to revolve around that and not another job. Yes, I want to do work and I want to contribute to the world and I want to contribute to society and my household financially, but also showing my kids what is possible and what it takes to build a life that we're obsessed with, and that working hard is how we get a lot of the things that we want. And I won't go on too much of a tangent there, but I do want to do all of those things. I just thought it would look a whole lot different than it does. And that is one thing that June has helped me learn. And so grateful for that. I think I need to wrap this up because I'm just going to start squirreling. But if you have stuck along this long, thank you so much for tuning in today. I want to continue sharing more about June, sharing more about what's working, what's not, different resources that we're using, any other suggestions that I have as this path progresses. I also love questions, suggestions, all the things. So please connect with me on Instagram if you have any questions about this topic specifically. Oh my gosh, or like a spinoff, something that came from this episode that you're like, hey, that would be a cool episode. Let me know. I would love to hear it. Hit me up, Instagram. Love you guys. I hope you have an absolutely beautiful rest of your day, evening, week, wherever this lands for you in your life. I just hope you're doing well. And I hope that you continue tuning in and hit me up with any feedback because I love it. And that's just the way that I think a podcast like this continues to be valuable and beneficial, is with feedback. So love you, love you, love you. And I'll talk to you soon.